I'm all choked up. Thank you, Father Shaver, very much. Well, good morning, Jackson. Good morning. You know, someone told me that this event is the place to go when you want to see everybody who is everything in Jackson. And I think they were absolutely correct. I've seen a lot of people that I've known for many years. I see a lot of new faces. And all I have to say is, wow, what an incredible opportunity for me. And I do think the Community Foundation made a mistake in picking me, but nonetheless, a tremendous opportunity for me to come in and help to honor the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. I'm especially happy to see so many of you here today to honor him, to help kick off what I think is a week-long series of events in his honor. And I think that one reason why people come to events like this to honor Dr. King is because he was a man of incredible courage, honor, vision, and commitment. He was a man who touched the lives of virtually every American, past, present, and future. And not only that, he touched the lives of millions of people around the world. Wow. Can you imagine that? Just stop and think about that for a minute. Can you imagine if we could make that kind of impact? If we could change the world even just a little bit, just a fraction of what Dr. King did? Just think about that for a minute. Wow. Well, I think that all of us have the ability to change the world. I really do. But the concern is that we don't have the confidence, we doubt our commitment, and we don't think we have the knowledge to be able to do it. If we would only give ourselves permission, can you imagine the things that we could achieve? Can you just imagine that? Well, I believe that this room today is filled with Dr. Martin Luther Kings. All of us here today, every single one of us, whether you're young, whether you're old, and I'll give you an example of old in just a minute. Actually, the guy's younger than me, so I have to be a little careful. But I think everybody has the opportunity if we are just willing to give it a chance. We all of us have vision, we have dreams of a better world, but what sets us apart, as I said, is that we doubt our courage, we question our resolve, and we don't give our commitment a chance. I'm certainly no Dr. Martin Luther King, that's for sure. He was much better looking than me. But I did have a vision that I want to tell you a little bit about, and a dream. However, my dream took place in a faraway land, took place in the Philippines, as Father Shaver said. Until about 6 years ago, I was a senior officer with Consumers Energy and CMS Energy as we embarked on the international energy industry. I think many of you in the room here will remember those days. It's kind of an interesting time. But I absolutely loved that job. I just loved that job. Because what I had to do was when we would purchase a new power plant or distribution system somewhere in the world, I'm the one that had to go out and help figure out how would we do business in that country. It was a great job because I had to know the people, I had to understand the culture, I had to know what made them tick. Well, one day, we purchased 3 power plants on the island of Cebu. And unfortunately, we had some very major labor issues there, so I wound up spending a great deal of time dealing with these issues. I was really focused on this, but remember I said that a part of my job was to understand the culture. And so on the weekends or when I wasn't busy doing something else, I couldn't help but notice street kids and orphan kids that were sleeping on the streets. They didn't have very many rights. Didn't have any status at all. It was terrible. I wanted to do something about it, but again, I had this big job to worry about. I had a family at home, and so I really tried to ignore the situation. I did get involved briefly, assisting with an orphanage in Bataan, but for the most part, I focused on my job. Many of you have been in third world countries, traveling where beggars will come up to the car and they'll tap on the window and they'll do like this. And psychologically, we try to not see them. What we'll do is we won't make eye contact. It's kind of like when someone's speaking a foreign language and you don't understand, you talk louder, because that maybe they'll understand better if you talk louder, right? Okay. What? It's sort of the same situation here. If you don't make eye contact with them, maybe they won't see you. If you don't see them, maybe they won't see you. So that's what I tried to do, mostly, is I just tried to not see these children. I didn't make eye contact with them if at all possible. And I can only imagine that this is probably what Dr. King tried to do when he saw a lot of the injustices going on in the world. He probably tried to just not see it, but he reached a point. He reached a point where he could no longer ignore the situation, and he had to act. And look at what happened. He changed the world. Well, that's basically what happened to me. A little bit different, but basically the same. I reached a point where something had to change. And that happened in 2002. CMS Energy decided in 2002 that we didn't want to be an international energy company anymore. So we were going to sell all of our projects around the world. So, kind of in reverse, they sent me out to help put the deals together. So I went to Cebu, back again, and we had done everything. It was all finished. And I had an airline ticket in my hand. I was leaving the Philippines the following morning at 7 o'clock from Mactan Airport. I remember it like it was last night. I had the ticket in my hand. And I was getting ready to go. I was all packed. And then it was really, I'm not joking, it was like God came up and put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Wait a minute, John, not so fast." And that's when the mayor of Toledo City, Mayor Arlene Zambo, came up to me. Sometimes I get choked up talking about this. Sorry. If you've heard me talk before, you know I can't help it. The mayor came up to me and she said, she knew I was interested in street kids and orphan kids, and she knew I had volunteered at this orphanage in Bataan. So she came up to me and she said, "John, we have an orphanage here in Toledo City. It's in desperate need of renovation. Would you be willing to renovate it and run it for us?" I said, "Hello, this is called an airline ticket. I'm leaving tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. I'm never coming back." I didn't say that, but I was thinking it. And I thought, well, this is a peculiar request. I'm not even good with kids. Why would she ask me this? Besides, think about this for a minute. This is on the other side of the planet Earth. It's a different culture. It's a different language, different customs, different everything. And the mayor asks me to renovate and run an orphanage. I've never run an orphanage before. What's that? So, whoops. See, I'm shaking the walls. We're changing the world. Well, this was an impossible task, and I didn't want to do it. I just clearly didn't want to do it. I wanted to go home. But I didn't want to be rude, and I didn't know what to say. So I said, "Well, Mayor, why don't you show me what we're talking about, just so I'll understand." See, I'm buying time here. And so she took me to the old Lingap Center. And Lingap in the dialect means something like emergency shelter or crisis center. And so what she did is she took me to the old Lingap Center, and what I found was a dilapidated old building about the size of a large mobile home that had been originally constructed. Sorry. It was originally constructed as a big slaughterhouse. Well, they had water problems at the slaughterhouse, and so they took the pigs out and they put street kids and orphan kids in. Now, as awful as that sounds, you have to understand that this did save their lives. There are children alive today thanks to that big slaughterhouse. There was an open sewer running. I gotta get past this. There was an open sewer running by the kitchen door, and there were 26 kids packed into this facility. There had been as many as 55, and it was capable of handling probably 10. They had a refrigerator, so I went to the refrigerator and I looked in to see what kind of food they were eating. And there were 3 Tupperware containers that were probably this big and that deep. and they were filled. One had chicken, one had pork, and one had rice. And so I said to the mayor, wow, that looks pretty good. So how long will this last? Is this enough to feed all these kids for today? And she said, no, that's for the month. These kids were starving. I'm okay. These kids were all victims of abuse, neglect, abandonment. And in many cases, it was too horrible for me to even talk about or even think about. Not only that, they were not permitted to attend school, nor were they welcomed in the church. It was unbelievable. There was a fellow by the name of Bob Pierce who once said, "Let my heart be broken by the things that break the heart of God." Well, I have to tell you, my heart was broken. There was no doubt about it. But I didn't want to do this project. It's on the other side of the planet Earth, different customs, different laws, different language. I'm going home, got an airplane ticket, remember? I'm going to forget this. And so I told the mayor, I said, well, thank you very much. This was most informative. I'm going to think about this. I'm going to think about it. I'll pray about it. And I will be in touch. In other words, I have my people call your people. Okay? I knew full well I would never call the mayor back. Because I decided this event didn't happen. It didn't happen. I'm going to go home and I'm going to forget about it. And that's exactly what I did. I came home. I didn't tell Judy about it. By the way, Judy's my wife. I didn't tell her about it for a long time. But what would happen? What would happen is that I would wake up in the middle of the night and I would be remembering those faces, those young lives, with no hope, no future, and no place to go. And I would start crying. Now. And Judy'd say, well, what's the matter? And I would say, oh, nothing. I was having a bad dream. That's fine. Remember, I'm forgetting this. And one morning I woke up, I was crying, and she said, okay, what's going on? You're waking up all the time crying. So I told her. I told her the whole story. I told her about the pig slaughterhouse, the abuse, the neglect, the starvation, everything. I told her the whole thing. And I told her that, Judy, I think I'm being called. There's something going on here that I don't understand. I think I'm being called. And I know that one day I'm going to meet my Maker. And he's going to look at me. And like Father Shaver said, he's going to ask me, what did you do for the least of my brothers? And I've got to have a good answer. And I also need to be able to look myself in the mirror and know that I tried. But between you and me, I had no intention of doing this project. So I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back over to the Philippines. This could be my last trip. And I'm going to prove that it can't be done. But at least I will know that I tried. She said, okay. I said, don't worry about a thing. I'll be back in about 2 weeks, and then we'll get on with life as we know it. She said, fine, bon voyage. So away I went back to the Philippines. And when I got there, it was with God's counsel and support that every obstacle was overcome. Everything. Everything. I'll give you one example. Being an American, I can't own land in the Philippines. So I told the mayor, I said, Mayor, I would love to do this. Everything has been resolved, but I can't own land, and that place is too nasty. We can't renovate it. I'd have to build a new one. So, can't own land. Sorry. Bye. Got an airplane ticket. And she said, John, please, not so fast. We will give you the land. And they did. So you can imagine the conversation when I got home. I said, Judy said, how was your trip? Oh, fine. Oh, by the way, we're going to build us an orphanage in the Philippines. And she says, okay, how do you plan to pay for it? I said, I hadn't thought of that. We'll worry about that later. If we have to, maybe we'll sell the house. And she said, okay. Can you imagine that? I couldn't either. But she did. It's true. Well, it was a about this time that I found a quote from Mother Teresa in which she said, "I know that God won't give me anything I can't handle. I just wish that he didn't trust me so much." Clearly she had me in mind. There's no doubt about it. Okay? Well, I have since learned that when God issues a call, he sometimes forgets to include a roadmap or a set of instructions. But I also learned from Father Jeff Rose that nothing is by coincidence. It was pretty obvious to me that God had been preparing me for this assignment for many, many years in my international assignments. Well, since that day, now time has gone on, since that day in 2004, we have built a brand new facility capable of handling 100 of the most needy children in the world. All of them are attending church and school. In fact, this year I have 15 in college. In March, this past March, we had our first college graduate, Margie Ladamo, graduated from college. The first time I saw Margie was at the old pig slaughterhouse. She was sitting on the edge of a pig trough. She had a completely blank stare on her face. She had no hope whatsoever. None. Today she's a college graduate, and she's working at the Marriott Hotel in Cebu City. Can you believe it? I can't. And I will tell you that I'm pretty darn proud of Margie. This coming March, we will have our second graduate. In October, we'll have our third. And one of our kids this year is studying agriculture in the Netherlands. Since March of 2006, when the new Lingap Center opened, we've sponsored 100 children for baptism into the church. In fact, we had a program just 2 weeks ago Saturday, and we baptized 26. Our third Saturday outreach, which is a children's mass and soup kitchen, which we opened up to the entire community, recently had over 5,000 children in attendance. Over 5,000. And we fed them all. It was a spectacular day. Here are kids who were not even welcome in the church, attending Mass, and we fed them all. Wow, what a day. I get shivers just thinking about it. This project has now gone far beyond helping 26 kids in need, which is where I started. We're touching the lives of thousands. Well, since it was clear to me that I was responding to God's call, and that he had more and bigger plans for me, I decided to retire from CMS Energy and Consumers Energy, from the job that I loved, in 2006. And next to Mary and Judy, that was the best decision I've ever made in my life. In August of 2008, we started a street children's education program in which our street educator goes to 3 different locations throughout the city every day. And she teaches the children reading, basic arithmetic, and hygiene. And we also provide these kids with lunch every day. Now, usually, or often, I should say, this is the only meal of the day that these kids get. And sometimes what they'll do is they'll eat it right on the spot. But other times they'll wrap it up and carry it home to feed their entire family. Those kids who show an ability to live in a structured setting, we've taken into the Lingap Center. One of them, our 15-year-old 5th grader, Jonathan, is going to be going to college. He doesn't know it yet. I haven't told him. I'll explain that to him soon, very soon. We average about 85 children a day on our street ed program, but we're working hard to try to increase it. Some of our other outreach programs, Father Jeff goes with me from time to time, and we have done Mass in the squatter villages. These people don't feel like they're welcome in the church, so many of them have never ever been to a formal church service. I have to tell you, it's almost impossible for me to describe what that feels like. The Rotary-sponsored Community Library Project, thank you Rotary Club, opened in 2009 to an estimated 2,500 potential beneficiaries. Additionally, we were named the recipient of a Peace Corps volunteer. And in the letter awarding us the volunteer, the national coordinator told us that the reason we were selected was because we are the best facility of our kind in the entire Philippines. Now think about this. Remember I said God doesn't issue a roadmap or a set of instructions? I didn't have a clue what I was doing. Not a clue. But it turned out pretty well. It did. Now I want to tell you a little bit. Remember I said I was going to mention somebody older? That it's never too late to make a difference. It's never too late to make a difference. Our Peace Corps volunteer is a fellow by the name of Lonnie Cooper. He's 62 years old. He was a retired police officer, drug enforcement detective, undercover guy, college professor, attorney. But he wanted to be able to help change the world. And so he gave everything up and joined the Peace Corps. He has been a huge, unbelievable assist to us. The church. Remember I said the children were welcomed in the church? The church has invited the children to be the official church choir. Our kids are the altar servers. They're everything. Our choir sings at weddings, fiestas, funerals, anything. And recently, the mayor of Toledo City invited our choir to sing for the governor of Cebu on an official state visit. Now think about this. The outcasts have now become the ambassadors for goodwill in that community. Think about that. And how is this possible? How is it possible? It's only possible because we reached out to those less fortunate than ourselves, and we gave them a chance, and we responded to God's call. To me, this is a miracle. I really do believe that place is a miracle. You might like to know that the Lingap Children's Foundation is a 501c3 organization. But because I believe so much in the work that we're doing, 100% of all donations that we receive go directly to the benefit of the children. My board of directors and I personally pay all administrative costs. But because of this, the world is a little bit better place today. As I said in the beginning, I'm no Martin Luther King. I never could be. I'm just John. But I too had a dream. Thousands of children, literally thousands of children, are now living a better life as a result of that dream. And I just thank God every day for giving me the courage to act on it. You too, all of you in here, can have that same sort of impact on the world if you want to. If you only listen to your hearts and dream. Dream big. Dream big. But most importantly, take a chance. Take a chance. Don't take the easy way. Take a chance. Your dreams don't need to be in faraway lands like mine were. But perhaps you have a dream for your own school, for your own children, for your neighbors, or for someone in the hospital. But please, please open your hearts and reach out to them. And everyone will be better off for it. I guarantee it. Dig deep down inside and find the courage. And we all have that courage, and act on it. If I can do this, I'm the least likely guy in the world to do something like this. As I said, I'm not even good with kids. If I can do it, you can do it. I promise you, you can. I cannot begin to tell you the number of people who doubted that we could pull off the Lingap project. Many people told me we couldn't do it. But I simply couldn't give up, and it paid off. I'm so glad that I listened to my heart and not to my doubters. I would like to share with you some wisdom for a world-renowned, highly respected philosopher, Christopher Robin, when he was speaking to his good friend Winnie the Pooh. He said, and I quote, I gotta read this, "Promise me that you'll always remember that you're braver than you believe, and you're stronger than you seem, and you're smarter than you think." And it was Dr. Seuss who said in the Lorax, "Unless someone like you cares an awful lot, nothing's going to get better." It's not. The world needs people like all of us to make a difference. And we can do it. We can do it. I have one quick story that I'd like to share with you about Building Up Children and their desire to help those less fortunate than themselves. A few years ago, there was a terrible, terrible typhoon that hit Manila. It was on the international news. It was a big thing. It was probably the equivalent of our Katrina. It was terrible. Many, many people died. Well, the children heard about it in school. And what they did is they formed a committee and elected a spokesperson. And they came to me and they said, Tito, we would like to send 3 bags of rice to Manila, to the flood victims. And I said, well, that's a wonderful suggestion. I really applaud your generosity, but these rice bags are 80, 100 bags are very expensive, and rice is our biggest budget item. I said, I would love to send it, but I'm sorry, I hardly have enough rice to feed you. So I just can't do it. And the committee turned around to each other and they said, see, I told you he'd say that. I told you he'd say that. Well, don't worry, Tito. We will pay for it. We will pay for it. And I said, well, that's fine, but how are you children going to pay for these 3 bags of rice? And they said, we will pay for it by not eating. We will pay for it by not eating. I am so blessed. I have everything. I have everything. And then these broken children who have nothing are more concerned for those less fortunate. Sorry. Less fortunate than themselves. What a lesson I learned from them. We sent the rice, and I didn't make the kids pay. But the point is, they cared an awful lot, like Dr. Seuss said. They cared an awful lot. As a result, they helped to change the world for those people in need. They can do it. You can do it. Okay? The book of Galatians chapter 6 verse 9 says, and I quote, let us not become weary in doing good, for at the appropriate time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Well, I'm here to tell you that the one who reaped the harvest was me. I absolutely love what I do. The children are certainly better off for the project, but I have found that opening your heart to God's call and doing for others is the greatest gift that you can give to yourself. I've also learned to never again doubt the significance of God's call or listening to your dreams. I really want to thank the Jackson Community Foundation for inviting me to come here to speak today. What an honor this was. I just can't imagine a greater honor for me. But before I go, I want to share with you a very short poem. I want to ask you to listen to this poem very, very carefully, please. It relates more to my situation than it does Dr. King, but there are many, many similarities with it. And it goes like this. On the street, I saw a small child, cold and shivering in thin clothes, with little hope of a decent meal. I became angry and I said to God, why did you permit this? Why don't you do something about it? For a while, God said nothing. And that night he replied quite suddenly, I certainly did do something about it. I made you. Thank you all so much.